Well, you know what's really interesting is that the reviews and referrals come because your practice is giving what I call a standing ovation. That's your standing ovation. People don't know the referrals and the reviews come from that experience, not the quality of medicine. So veterinarians, oftentimes we've got this fixed idea that if all we do is have our AHA sticker in the window and practice high quality medicine, people are going to come in for droves for that. And they don't.
Oh, yeah. But if you walked in and there was a butler and the door was open for you and your name, you knew it was
somebody takes your bag of dog food out of the car for you.
And they know your name and your dog's name.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. See that.
They come up from behind the counter and play with your dog.
All right. Well, welcome back to the Walker Kreative podcast, guys. Today is an excellent podcast for you. So listen closely because we have Dr. Joel Parker. Now, this guy was 15-year owner of a vet practice, 17 years vet surgeon, vet owner. This guy built an incredibly successful practice, and then he exited to do something even bigger to help the veterinary world all across the United States and probably further. So welcome, Dr. Parker.
Great. Thanks, Cebron. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So I gave you a little intro, but fill us in just so everybody realizes like a bit of your experiential track so they know who they're listening to today.
Sure. Good. So, the kind of 10-second longer elevator speeches, grew up in Western Canada, actually born in Alaska, grew up in Western Canada, living on the water, had a lot of pets as a kid, flying squirrels living in the house and all this kind of crazy stuff. It was really fun. So really early love of animals, moving forward, went to vet school at a great accredited Canadian college and graduated in 1984. Not top of the class, kind of the B student sort of thing. My wife, she was more top of the class, right? So, but my wife works for me, right? That's
nice.
That whole story, right? Right. You know that one about how the A students work for the C students, the B students work in government, right?
Nice. And of course, at the end of the day, we all work for our wives. So
we all work for our wives at the end of the day. So who are we trying to kid, right? Yeah. So graduated out, well trained. I had some experience and so forth. So jumped right into private practice. I had an option to go to New York to work for Animal Medical Center for an internship. I got passed up on that. Went into private practice. And lasted about 2 years and really kind of, disappointed with the quality of medicine that was happening because the one thing that I looked for were these American Animal Hospital Association accredited practices. Everybody knows that, the AHA practices. So the first one I went to was accredited, but there was even stuff about that I wasn't super happy with. So an early higher level of standards. And about 2 years into it, started doing relief work for the smallest AHA accredited practice in America, weighing in at a whopping 860 square feet. But it was known and talked about as being the highest end practice in the city. Started doing the relief work there. And a couple months into doing that, the owner said, "Listen, Joel, I'm burnt out. You should buy the practice."
And so, what city is this again?
This was in West Vancouver, Canada.
Okay.
And West Vancouver, you have to understand, is the highest per capita income community of the whole country.
Dang. Okay. Vancouver's a beautiful place.
Vancouver is a beautiful place. It absolutely is. We've got the mountains right there and the water. That's a place where you can ski and mountain bike and windsurf all in the same day.
Yeah, it does sort of remind me where I grew up in the valley in California. Yes. I had Lake Tahoe an hour and a half up there in the mountains, and then I had the Santa Cruz beaches about 2 hours over. What a wonderful place.
Beautiful place.
Yeah.
And with that comes amazing people. And in that community, that practice was surrounded by 17 other veterinarians.
Now, see, I think that's so interesting for the people watching or listening is, we have a lot of veterinarians that we take care of at Walker Kreative and that watch what we're doing. And, the story of how you started in a practice like that in the competitive market you are in. I think this is so tell us. Keep going.
The story behind that is that I oftentimes compare this to flying an airplane. Yeah. My brother was a pilot and I grew up flying with him, and there's the throttle balls in the middle there, and when you shove them against the wall for takeoff, that's where that term "balls against the wall" comes from.
Oh, yeah.
Foot on the brake, throttle balls against the instrument wall, let your foot off the brake, go. And that was my kind of understanding of flying, right? But that doesn't make me a pilot.
Yeah.
But so jokingly, as one of my staff used to say, who was a pilot, she said, you could probably get the plane off the ground. I think I could, but does that mean I can land it safely? Can I fly it successfully? And the answer is equivocally no, right? I'm not trained on. I've got the idea. So moving over now into buying a practice, the owner said, Joel, you should buy the practice. I'm burned out. And I kind of thought, how hard can this be? Paydays every 2 weeks. That's like balls against the wall. Is your single stable piece of information. So I jumped in. The banks lent me a bunch of money. And, before I know it, I was the proud practice owner. And I lasted about 3 years by just kind of faking it, showing up and working hard. Yeah. And that's an important part. Everybody, do not think that you're going to be successful without some hard work. You got to show up. I always like Woody Allen's quote that, 80% of success was showing up. Yeah, it's a big part of it. Yeah. Right? You got to show up. So I'd show up and I'd work hard, but oftentimes we weren't busy enough. And I had my little aha sticker in the window. And the fixed idea I had, the kind of fixed paradigm, is that I thought that all there was to running a successful practice was quality medicine. And it is important. Okay?
No doubt. I mean, when we're working with a vet, it's always wonderful to realize when you're doing marketing for a veterinary practice, when you go in and that doctor is got it together as far as the medicine,
right?
Then when you're doing the marketing and driving in new leads and new clients that they're being well taken care of, then it just starts to pop because the reviews are rolling, the referrals are rolling. So
what's really interesting is that the reviews and referrals come because your practice is giving what I call a standing ovation. That's your standing ovation. It's because you've delivered an experience to the clients that is greater than they expected. In fact, that's the title of my book, The Standing Ovation Practice.
Oh, where can people get that book?
It's not published yet.
Oh, you're writing it.
Exactly.
Okay, everybody. We have just pre-released. Look out for it. Dr. Joel Parker. Say the title again.
Standing Ovation Practice.
Standing Ovation Practice.
Yeah.
I love it. We'll look out for it.
Yeah. How to excel in a very highly competitive environment.
Oh man.
And there's people still looking for that above and beyond expected experience.
Yeah.
The interesting thing, Cebron, is that people don't know the referrals and the reviews come from that experience, not the quality of medicine.
Oh,
clients would have to go back to vet school in order to have a realistic idea of quality medicine. Think of yourself going and experiencing dentistry, for example. I'm not a dentist, but I really like the people I work with who are my dentist, my hygienist. I have high confidence in them, but I have no judgment on the quality of their dentistry.
Right. I guess you're right.
My teeth look good.
Yeah.
But that's on the suit. So veterinarians, oftentimes we've got this fixed idea that if all we do is have our aha sticker in the window and practice high quality medicine, people are going to come in for droves for that. And they don't.
Oh, yeah. I can see that because the clients, especially with veterinarians, because it's an animal that can't talk. So
it's
the
like
animal, so you're going to expect good medicine. And if the dog seems happier than before, potentially, or the cat or the exotic, whatever it was, then you're going to go, good, the work was fine. But how can you make judgment? You don't. But if you walked in and there was a butler and the door was open for you and your name, you knew it was
somebody takes your bag of dog food out of the car for you.
And they know your name and your dog's name.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. See that.
They come up from behind the counter and play with your dog.
By the way, just as a side note, I went to a Michelin star restaurant last weekend with my wife for date night. It was the first date night we've had in a long time because we have children, right? So it was a special thing. Nice. And I'm like, I am not going to miss this opportunity. We're going to do it right. And I tell you, that Michelin star restaurant, for anybody that knows, that is going to give you, hopefully, an exceptional experience. And I'm telling you, that was an example that I could relate to any veterinary practice or any practice or person that we're working with is that's what matters. The food was good, no doubt. I mean, the food was good, but the servers and the care they took with providing it to us and then talking to us and introducing us to what we were eating, then walking us back to meet the chef. Then as we left, gave us a gift bag with the coffee that my wife made a comment that it was the best coffee she's ever had, best dinner coffee. So they presented her with a gift bag with half a pound of that coffee as we left the restaurant and took photos with us.
So that's what I call looking for opportunities to deliver an above and beyond expected experience. So you've got to be in communication with the waiter in that sense.
Yeah.
The waiter picks up that she loves the coffee, relates that back to the crew that puts together a bag of coffee. You have to look for those opportunities.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And it's like, because if you think about it, the truth is it was 10 minutes of effort, 15 minutes of effort. But, the referrals, the reviews, we've given reviews, we've given referrals. I've related this story probably 5 times already to people that could go to that restaurant.
And this begs the question on how to get referrals. I believe referrals are like a standing ovation at a concert. Nobody walks in the front, through the little front gate at the stadium and says, hey, if you stand up at the end, I'll give you $20. Nobody bribes anybody for a standing ovation, right? As goofy as that is.
Yeah.
No, it's not in practice. We shouldn't ask for referrals because sometimes people need a little nudge. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But my belief is that if you create and deliver a standing ovation performance, that you will generate that word of mouth like you've done. You've told 5 people. Now you're telling thousands of people listening to your podcast.
Yeah.
Do you remember the name of the restaurant?
Knife and Spoon in Orlando.
Knife and Spoon in Orlando. There we go.
Yeah.
How many stars do you remember?
I guess I don't know how that works.
It goes 1 to 3.
Oh, it was a 1 star. I think it's
fine.
I don't know if we have a 2 or 3 star Michelin restaurant.
Not sure either. Yeah, they are around, but in Chicago and New York, and places like that, in Europe, of course. We went to a 1-star, recently starred Michelin restaurant in Vancouver called Published on Main, and had an amazing evening of amazing food and beverages and that. And I've told many, many people about that. My question always is, would you go back?
Yeah.
Right. And the answer, I would be,
without a doubt.
No. Yes, you would.
Yeah. And I would want to take somebody.
You want to take somebody. You want to share.
Yeah.
And so I think that's true with a veterinary practice as well. So that's the stuff that I wasn't focusing on when I first had the practice. I was focusing on quality of medicine with my AHA sticker in the window. What's interesting is we had a fuzzy little toilet brush dog, that would sit in the window with a little bumblebee sweater on. And Roxy, brought all kinds of people in. It was that stuff.
It was a real dog.
It was a real dog. Yeah. She'd go sit in the sun.
Nice. So we're 3 years in.
We're 3 years in.
You're Dr. Parker, 3 years in, you're a pretty good vet.
Yeah. It's very good.
And you have this little tiny practice.
Yeah. Little tiny
surrounded by other bigger practices.
Yeah.
And you're hitting the wall.
I'm hitting the wall. I had started about a year earlier. I hit the wall in summer of 89. Hit the wall. But before that, I was starting to look at how do I objectively run this practice? You guys remember the old I Love Lucy show?
I mean, I do, but I'm old. Some of the young people maybe.
But some of them might not get it. But there's probably clips on YouTube you can go to watch. But Lucy's husband was Ricky Ricardo, and he was a sales guy. So he had graphs. You'd see him, he'd be graphing stuff out and so forth. So I had this funny feeling that there had to be a way of taking objective data out of a practice and graphing it out and managing it by graphs, right?
Yeah.
That's how we work as a veterinarian, Cebron. Like when we get a diabetic cat in, we will bring it in for the day. We will measure what are called serial, like a series of blood glucose values. We'll graph them out. We'll look and see, what's the dose of insulin we should use? What's the method we should use? What's the frequency, once a day, twice a day, whatever, stuff like that. And we'll look to see when the insulin hit and the glucose starts to fall down, stuff like that. That's how I was trained. Veterinarians were trained to look at subjective data, what the owner says about the dog, pull blood work, take x-rays, do an echocardiogram of the heart. We're used to looking at objective data and making a diagnosis and coming up with a patient care plan.
Yeah.
I had this idea that there had to be a way of doing that for a practice. So I started looking at profit loss statements from my accountant. And the typical profit loss statement, you got your income at the top, then your expenses, and then there's what's left over at the bottom, AKA your profit, your earnings. And I would look at that, and often not, they'd have brackets around the bottom of it, which meant that I lost money. So I would say to my accountant, I'd say, well, what should I do about it? As a client would ask me, and he'd get this funny look on his face and say, Joel, I don't know how to run your practice. I just know you don't have to pay taxes. It was the most absurd thing, because what do you do with that? You can't use that to affect a change in your practice.
Right.
So I'm progressing on that. I'm trying to figure out, I'm reading books and all this kind of stuff. And then one day I'm in the middle of surgery, and it's a tough surgery. Overweight animals are tough to do surgery on, as everybody knows. Everything's all slippery. I'm doing a spay on this older Labrador retriever that's overweight, and I'm a good surgeon, but it's a difficult surgeon, as everybody would admit. And I get a call come in from the bank manager that there's no money in the account. And he relates to the receptionist that I need to put some money in the account. And he'll hold paychecks for 24 to 48 hours. And not everybody's gone through an experience like that. Some people just start a practice and add water and they're swamped. They have other problems. But for me, again, highly competitive area, not enough people coming in. Veterinarian 10 doors down the same side of the street. There's not enough work. And now I've got the manager on the phone. We call that an adverse effect, right? I'm hitting the wall. And about that time, I received a call from a company that was promoting attending a management workshop. So I said, enough is enough. And this is where I attended this workshop and was presented with a management system that was very evidence-based, where you collect data out of the practice, like pulling a blood sample out of the patient. The data is all in your computer management system, and you graph it out, and here's how you manage by it. And there are formulas you use that when you manage them, the practice will become busier and more profitable. Okay,
so you have now had sort of a moment of, this is a solution. Here's a system.
Yeah.
Here's a step-by-step procedure for the business side.
Yeah, rather than just showing up every day and hoping that clients are going to come in the door, here's a system that you're going to use your data, much like you manage a patient, and you are going to affect positive change growth on the practice following these formulas.
So now we're at about 4 years in?
Yeah, we're now heading into 4 years.
Heading into 4 years. Okay, good. So what happens?
So what happens when I start studying? First of all, I got to leave the practice. I've got to travel.
Oh, because you have to go learn how to do this.
Go learn. There's no Zoom meetings or anything like that. You got to get.
You're old. That's right.
I'm old. Yeah, I'm old. That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Before the internet.
Yeah, well, the internet came in my experience, about 93.
Okay.
So about 3-4 years after that was my first experience.
I thought Al Gore invented it in 95 or 96.
Al Gore, yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. It's funny. I remember going to my first internet, this is a little sidebar note, my first internet discussion. There was a radio station that I used to go on with a talk show host and named Bill Good Jr. And so I would listen to Bill on the off times too. And he was interviewing somebody. He was interviewing two people that were talking about this internet, quote unquote.
Oh,
and one guy was saying, it's all a bunch of bullshit. It's just a bunch of old university and military stuff, and it's never going to go anywhere. The other guy, he was saying, I disagree 180 degrees here. This is the next thing. And I'm putting a workshop on at this hotel, right? This coming weekend at 1 o'clock, whatever it was. So I showed up there. He's plugged his laptop computer into a projector, projecting on the wall. And he's accessed this browser called Netscape Navigator. I'm dating myself. He types into Netscape Navigator bonsai trees, and bump up comes this site with bonsai trees for sale in New York. By that time, so this would be 93. By that time, I'd started a manufacturing company. That's another story as well.
Okay.
I started a manufacturing company called Canine Equipment Gear for Dogs, and I was interested in how do we promote this thing. We were already getting sales in Japan and the US, Canada, UK, and that. But I wanted to know, how do we take this thing big? I looked at this and went, wow, I can see where this is going.
Nice.
Right? Obviously, the naysayer disappeared. This guy took off. Netscape Navigator was eventually copied by Internet Explorer. It kind of fizzled out. Google Chrome came in. Firefox, all these guys came in.
Wow.
Anyways, the long story short of that is that it was on discovering a management system that was evidence-based. It was originally built by a gentleman with an engineering background, so it was very, very logical. Do this, do that. Let's say that you get 10 clients that come in 1 week and 4 the next. That would be, you would see, if you graph that out, you can imagine that there's a downward drop in the graph, and then there would be a formula that you apply. So I started applying these formulas, and lo and behold, in this tiny little practice, in this highly competitive area that grew by 1.5% population a year. This is a stable population.
Yeah, because we have, so good
by doing
points
that
too.
And applying these formulas, a lot of the formulas were how to promote, which is your specialty.
Yeah.
Up until that point in time, Cebron, I had my AHA sticker in the window, and we'd send vaccine cards out once a month, right? That was kind of it, right?
Come get your dog vaccine. I guess that was the introductory service. It was like, how do we get, what's something inexpensive to get someone in the front door?
Yeah, that's what I call vaccine-oriented medicine, VOM. The drug companies and the veterinarians, we did this amazing thing of convincing people that all pet health was the yearly vaccine and making sure there was enough water in the water bowl. And they bought it. They bought that very simple thing. I got to show up for shots. When I came in for a short period of time, I said, no, we're going to go more for wellness. We're going to go for lifestyle medicine. And nobody, come in for the wellness exam where they go, doc, he's eating his food and the water dish is going down. Now I'll pass. So it was a funny thing. We had to go back onto that marketing tool of the vaccine-oriented medicine. And then once they were in the room, we would have a lifestyle discussion. The 18-year-old cat doesn't need vaccines. It needs an echocardiogram and some lab work taken. The shit-eating 6-month-old puppy at the park needs vaccines, right? Lifestyle. We went on to that.
That's brilliant. And I mean, there's so many conversations I've had with other veterinarians that that sort of, I guess, system or how they've gotten, you get someone in and then you have the conversations, right? And there's different medicine for every level of pet. So you owned and operated this practice. It booms. How big did it get?
It boomed. I got it up to 3.5 doctors. I got down to working 20 hours a week. I'd come and I do the specialized surgeries. I do the endoscopy that I created another company, Veterinary Endoscopy Solutions. That's fiber optics, for diagnosis and treatments and so forth. And so I did that and hopped on my mountain bike at 1:00 in the afternoon, went for a spin, and then worked. I became an entrepreneur, what I call a vetrepreneur, veterinarian turned entrepreneur.
Beautiful, beautiful.
And worked that until about 2001. And then, everybody, you may relate to this. You can be in a practice and growing and expanding and doing something really well, but it can peak. Right. And then after a while, it can start that you're doing the same thing over and over again. It can get slightly vanilla. And that's the kind of like cue that it's time to go and do something else. So I had the opportunity to move to Florida and work with a consulting company in this same management system. And so I did a lifestyle change. I sold everything. My wife was already down living in this area. Working on another project. And so I threw the 5-year-old son and the 2 dogs and Gordy, the hamster, in a Dodge minivan and drove from Vancouver, Canada, down to Florida. And it was the most amazing journey. We went all the way down to Oregon coast, Redwood Forest, Yosemite, Death Valley, Grand Canyon. We did the whole thing.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy.
Gordy the hamster would run at night in the wheel if it was dark out, right? It's hilarious.
I sort of did I came across to the Tampa Bay area from California, and I drove. The whole house was in the back of a U-Haul, and I drove across the country, and I went to like where the asteroid hit and all the various things in Texas as you go across. Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, so you got here.
So I got here and I started consulting, and
you jumped hats. You had the hat of successful doctor vet practice. You got it to the point of great success, and now you're like, I got to do the next thing.
I'm still young.
Thing in my life.
Yeah.
And you started got into a consulting company to help other vets.
And learned kind of like the mechanics of how a consulting company works to get results. The consulting company I worked with and the system I worked with is evidence-based. It's results-based. You do this, you should expect to see this. If that's not working, then here's the tool to debug it. That's what I love about the system. And that's what the veterinarians that I work with love about this system. It fits perfectly, like a handshake with the way we mentally think about patients. For example, a dog comes in with an affected foot. We put them on antibiotics. The infection's not clearing up. What do? Right? Debug technique, culture it, get the sensitivities, choose the proper antibiotic. And so this system mimics this kind of medical viewpoint on how to create health in a patient.
Now you create health in a veterinary practice.
So one of the key workshops that I've developed and put on is called Diagnosis and Repair of a Veterinary Practice.
What a name. Perfect
name, right. And I hope to be out on the speaking circuit this next year with that talk. I've given it to a lot of insight people at the moment. People like it, and it makes sense.
You're testing it.
I'm testing it. Yeah, I like the title too. The other title of the workshop I've developed is called the Extra $1 Million Workshop, which I like as well because when you go to sell your practice, or if you're running a practice, with some simple tweaks and some hard work and so forth, you can create an extra $1 million worth of income in your practice. Or when you sell it, that can translate with a good profit score of an extra $1 million, can translate into extra million or millions of dollars when you go to transition out and sell your practice.
Brilliant. Now, I don't want to forget to ask, get our conversation in touch on the marketing. The marketing you did that played a role, because of course we're Walker Kreative. We do marketing for vet practices. I want to touch on that, or how you've worked with marketing people and what you found successful. But before we jump into that, so now you have been consulting veterinary practices around the country, around the world as well? Or
around the world, I started, so I came back to Vancouver in 2004 and started the company, Veterinary Practice Solutions. And then as a speaker, I've been over to China, Australia, all the way US and Canada, England, all over, talking about our system. And also, most of the work I do now is through Zoom meetings. And, the biggest factor there is the time zone, making sure everybody's got the time zones right. Because I've delivered finance meetings on Profit Builder to veterinarians in the Philippines and Australia, in Venezuela, Belgium, England, all over the place. And so it's a matter.
Some are having to be up in the middle of the night.
I know. Well, the poor guys in the Philippines, it was like 2 a.m. It was, and it's usually a 4-hour Zoom meeting with a 45-minute break in between, right? So about an hour and a half, 45-minute break, an hour and a half. And those poor guys were up at, 2 to 6 in the morning.
Oh my God.
But great. What I love about it is that they're young entrepreneurial veterinarians, and they're like I was. They need help. They're smart. Cebron, that's what I really dig about veterinarians. We're smart people. And by and large, we're really great people. I'm not saying there's not the odd kind of quirky, odd person. There's lots of odd veterinarians because we're individuals, and that's what I love about it too. We're fascinating. We're into all kinds of other things, from barrel racing to raising cattle to fly fishing to sports car racing. We're all over the map on stuff. It's super cool.
It's funny because we did a video shoot with a holistic veterinary surgeon in Sarasota, Florida 2 weeks ago. Brilliant lady. And we're doing the interview with her about her practice and her specialty of the mix of Western and holistic medicine. And she goes, well, I'm also a rock star, by the way. And I am a pretty hot dog skier because I spent 7 years in Reno, Nevada. So I skied in Tahoe. But she goes, yeah. Oh, and I'm doing a rock concert this Saturday night at a club here in Sarasota. I'm like legit, you're actually a rock star, or you're just like saying, well, I'm a rock star?
I'm a rock star.
Yeah,
I'm a good veterinarian. I'm a rock star.
I'm a rock star vet. No, I'm actually a rock star. And she sings AC/DC, Iron Maiden, Led Zeppelin, all the classic hardcore rock. And she's like legit, like she's on tour as a singer in a rock band. Wow. And she's a vet.
I'm sorry, Dr. So's not in today. She's touring.
Yeah. Right? Dr. Ann Luther. She is a legit rock star. Cool. So yes, vets are all over.
Luther.
Yeah.
That's killer.
So now, what would you say about how many vet practices have you worked with, and how has been the success now, the years that have come? Now you're on the hat of helping others build their practices.
So there's about 30,000 veterinary practices in the U.S. There's more veterinarians, but about 30,000 vet practices. Okay. We've worked with probably 10,000 of those, on all the way from people coming and doing a free introductory workshop, people watching my YouTube channel, Whiteboard Wednesdays, stuff like that, watching that kind of stuff, to people who have come in and attended a free webinar, to people who then have purchased either our finance course or team building course, stuff like that. And then on either of those, then take that next step into that executive MBA style of training that I got, that's really in our hands where the rubber hits the road. You want to change the culture of a practice. That's not doing well. That's like taking a failing high school basketball team or college basketball team, and we're talking about changing the muscle memory of the team. We're talking about, we have to get people to think differently, to do things differently, to get different results. How do we know what the results are? We track the numbers. We use these formulas and things like that. So it's an amazing process. So if you go on to my website, veterinaryfinancesolutions.com, you'll see a wall of fame there of all the practices we've worked with.
We'll make sure we put the in the links below and also on the screen, we'll put these certain domains. So you have veterinary
practice solutions,
practice solutions.
But the vertical within that I've started a couple years ago is veterinary finance solutions, which focuses specifically on profitability.
Great. That's going to be of huge interest. So let's touch on the marketing, because you talked about statistics, and in a lot of situations, you're going to be doing formulas that demand promotion.
Right. So one of the formulas that you use, the first step on that is to promote. So you go, okay, well, I'm already promoting. I'm sending cards out every month. Well, that's not working. There's not enough people coming in. So what does that mean? Right? It means to get something out there that'll be responded to, that people will pick up the phone and call in, whatever. So what do we put out there? What I learned on my training was the importance of survey technology. Yeah. Right? So I hired a survey team. They went down to the local dog park, and one of the first things they said was, which vet do you use? They go, well, we go to Ambleside Veterinary Hospital or Marine Drive, or we go and see Joel Parker. They didn't even know the name of my practice. So talk about
that's brilliant. I like that. Because dog parks are extremely popular.
Oh yeah.
So get a survey done and go talk to the people at the dog park. That's such a perfect target audience.
Thing it is. And I've done them myself now too. And it's fascinating. Most people love to be surveyed. The odd person doesn't want to, but that's rare.
Yeah.
And what do the dog owners have? Cats. Most of them, 80% of them got cats, right? You're right. So strictly cat owners, a few of them might have a dog, but most people with dogs have got cats as well. So you're getting kind of a cross population. So I realized that I've got this, I call it a rock star practice. And that's the practice. Here's another term I coined called the owner dependent practice versus the owner independent practice. So I had an owner-dependent rock star practice. Well, it's a little bit like the Rolling Stones. Mick Jagger, that band is dependent upon Mick Jagger.
Right.
If he's not going to sing, I don't think it's going to happen. Charlie Watts, may he rest in peace. Excellent drummer, passed away. They got another drummer there. Is he as good as Charlie? Maybe yes, maybe no. But the band still goes on with the three key members there, right?
Yeah.
But there is the importance. There are some key principal members, and that's the way my practice was set up. And the first couple of years as a new practice ownership, you love that. People coming in to see you. But then you realize that when you go away, nobody comes in. So I realized that we had to start to change things on what people wanted. I had to change the culture of the practice so that they were coming to the group and the practice name. And we had to find out exactly what people wanted in a veterinarian. And then the secret on marketing was then to create marketing materials that people would, first of all, would see them in the sea of flyers and postcards, and now email texts and Facebook posts, Instagram posts, in the sea of all that madness. There had to be something that stuck out. So I hired, my advice is that every practice out there needs a good creative marketing company like yours. They need somebody to do this. Some of us may be rock stars and touring. Some of us may be photographers. Some of us may be graphic artists, but it's not really what we do well. I'm not saying you can't open up Microsoft Publisher and bang out a little promotional piece. But 98% of the promotional pieces that I see, Cebron, from a veterinarian are just a diatribe of way too much text. They don't attract an interest. There's kind of a message in there, but it's confusing and it doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, something we focus on, because I really want, what you're saying is so important, but like when we go to a vet practice and they have a website that's 10 years old, or maybe it's 5 years old, but it's a mix and match of stock photography and pre-recorded video from some other company, not their company, and maybe not even them talking, but just a quote unquote doctor talking who no one even knows.
It's so boilerplate stuff, right?
Total boilerplate. And then you get into like, what's your brand of your practice? And again, you have to look at the point of, you don't want to build yourself into a rock star doctor that it all relies on you. We want to make your practice brand that you stand out among all the competition because you're trustworthy, because you're human, because your team, you get to meet your team.
Yeah.
Because you're going to first meet your team in a virtual way through your website, maybe through a social channel, whether it's YouTube or Facebook or something like that.
Or maybe through a YouTube push of a new doctor that, you interview the doctor for a 30-second, hi, I'm Dr. Jones. I'm Dr. Parker. I grew up living with flying squirrels in the house and raccoons at the back door. I love being a veterinarian. Come see me.
And it's human and it's real. And that makes you trustworthy because you're not using some boilerplate thing that they see the website, love some website, and then they come in because they do decide, okay, I'm going to come in, and then the practice does not even look like the website.
I know. So remember, we talked about the standing ovation practice that delivers the above and beyond expected experience. The problem with a really good website that doesn't have the staff to back it up is they get less than they expected when they come in. And that actually fuels a disappointment. That's like going to a band that you really love and the guy's singing out of tune. You're not given a standing ovation. So it's very interesting. Now, the key thing here is that what I found is that the practice did well because I'm a social guy, grew up with a mom that was super chatty with everybody, much to my embarrassment as a 14-year-old, but now realizing what she did,
Yeah.
So I have that nice ability, as you do too, to chat with anybody, right? Be interested in anybody. So if you don't hire staff like that to back you up, you will never create an owner-independent practice. The branding will go so far, right?
Yeah.
You can get people in the door, but do they stick? Do they meet that receptionist who is beautifully friendly and funny, and they have an experience with her that's above and expected, so that they'll come back? So one of the key things that I did, Cebron, is that not only was I marketing, and we coined this phrase, think of us as your other family doctor. My wife had joined the practice as a veterinarian at that time. I had a professional photographer client. I got Brad Stringer to set up a photo shoot of my wife and I, and we used that. We sent out a postcard. We purchased a old 1950s, the rights to a 1950s photograph that showed a little boy sitting in bed, with his little 50s blanket comforter, and the dog is in bed beside him, a little fox terrier, right? So it's a beautiful pic. The dog's chewing on a little chewy. And on the back, it says, I think on the front, it said something like, count the family members. And then on the back, it said, we do, picture of my wife, think of us as your other family doctors. And we sent that out. So people started seeing what this practice is all about. Then the most important thing is that I hired a client, Susan Campbell, that was super funny whenever she'd come in. She was a beautiful older woman. She had been an airline stewardess for many years. Super funny, super chatty, joke telling. So whenever Susan would come in, she would light the place up. So we had a little sign on the front desk that said, if you're a positive people person, in a bracket, in parentheses, love pets too, please apply. We're always taking applications. Susan applied, we hired her. And overnight, the whole kind of, let's call it the tone level, the emotional positiveness rose in that practice. And so that when people would come in expecting to see Shelley and I, they would also meet Susan. So Susan carried some of that magic.
That's beautiful.
And I forgot to mention this, but after I sold the practice, I ran into one of our associate doctors at the World Veterinary Congress. And she said, it's so great to see you. I didn't stay working after you sold it for maybe a year or so, but I'm doing this and this now. But that practice was magical.
There you go.
Pauline Chow's comment.
Build a magical practice. Yeah. That's another ebook, How to Build a Magical Practice.
Magical standing ovation practice, the magic.
I love it. I love it. Well, we could talk all day, but there's so many pieces here.
So marketing went from surveying to find out what people want to putting that marketing out using. So I had a great graphic designer that was a professional guy. He worked in Quark Express.
Man, yeah.
Yeah, like super heavy duty, nerd out design software.
My marketing team 20 years ago worked with Quark Express.
Yeah.
No one would know what that is today.
No, now, yeah. It was big. It was as good, if not better, than Illustrator at the time. But anyway, so I would sketch things out, thumbnail sketches. I would send it to Sean. Sean would come back, go back and forth, and so it's always good to, you need a creative guy on your side. You need a creative company to do this stuff.
Well, thank you for that. That's great. Yeah, no, we love working with vets. We find that building the brand for the vet is so important to then when you bring somebody in and you give them a magical experience. Yeah. Like you obviously did. So thanks for being with us today, Dr. Joel Parker. And great. I hope that everybody watching has really, take his points to heart, because this is how you build a great practice. And really, I'll say, because not everybody is a veterinarian. Someone, whether you have a medical practice or a business and building a magical business, these things relate across the boards for any entrepreneurial soul who's building their business.
They do. And I think the key thing here in creating this magical standing ovation business is that you have to have a strong desire to do it. It doesn't naturally happen. It has to be crafted. You have to do it. You have to pay attention to the details, have a vision of where you're going. You get that done. And then the magical thing happens, Cebron, that we started getting veterinarians that would hear about our business and just show up with applications.
You know, and we can't go on too long about this, but it is a huge situation right now in the veterinary world. I mean, almost every one of my clients talks to me of how do we do a little video? How do we do a promotion to get associate doctors wanting to be here, promote not only the practice, but the town, move here, this kind of thing. We are right now working on videos for clients to promote to be a doctor at a practice. So, okay. Well, good. Great to have you with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
Yeah.
More to go.
More to go.
More to talk, right? Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it for this episode. If you enjoyed the podcast, make sure you like it, subscribe, and also turn on notifications so you can see the next one. All right. Until next time. Later.